Boarding School Murder Mystery, Chapter 12. Thanks for tagging along with Gwen in Chapter 12. Gwen's big mouth finally catches up to her, right in the middle of class. Whisperen doesn't punish her like a kid. It processes her like a paperwork. A month of detention, a documentation review, and a threat so polite it could ruin her life. But Officer Suarez quietly confirms she's not crazy, and someone leaves a secret number under her pillow with 3 words that change everything. Ask for Claire. You can catch Gwen's Chaos and Sadie Cohen Bounty Hunter 2 wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and beyond. If you've ever tried to keep your life together with nothing but caffeine, sarcasm, and a prayer, you could tap the heart button. Engagement is magic. Leave a comment. Gwen will absolutely overthink it while trying to fall asleep. Or toss a coin in the snack fund. Haunted Loonies, always welcome, on Ko-fi, Venmo, and Cash App. Your support keeps indie storytelling caffeinated, chaotic, and just haunted enough. Stay tuned next week for The Trouble with Angels at Glorious Magazine at gloryfink.substack.com, and stay connected with the Coffee Bunny Crafters Cafe. Subscribe for cozy chaos, creative magic, and behind-the-scenes updates at coffeebunny.substack.com. And you can find me, Glory Fink, as Glory Writes the Blues on social media, on Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. Previously, in Boarding School Murder Mystery, we knew Gwen was going to do it. She had sat through too much silence, too many adult voices that turned soft and careful the second anyone said Mr. Grunfeld's name. Too many whispers that landed like pebbles in a lake, small, constant, impossible to ignore. So Gwen confronted a detective because she couldn't stand the quiet, and the school took it personally. And suddenly, the mystery wasn't just about a missing teacher. It was about who got to stay, who got removed, and who got believed. Chapter 12. A Perfectly Reasonable Punishment, Detention and Deportation Threats. Season 1 Finale. By Glory Fink. Dear Diary, I am writing this with my hands still kind of vibrating, like my bones are full of bees, which is poetic, except I do not want poetry right now. I want a normal Tuesday. I want to complain about cafeteria potatoes and whether Lavelle is ever going to not be in the mood for pineapple pizza. I want to be annoyed about homework and then forget about it immediately like other people do. Instead, I am learning something very important. Whisperen Academy does not punish you like a person. It processes you like paperwork. And I have become a file. It happened in the middle of class, which was honestly rude. If you're going to destroy my spirit, at least wait until after I finish taking notes on whatever tragic old war we're pretending is relevant to our lives. There was a soft knock on the door. Our teacher paused mid-sentence like she'd been waiting for it. Like she knew the knock was coming. Like the knock had its own seat in the classroom. A man I've never seen before stepped into the room. He was not dressed in a business casual way like the staff usually does. He was in a gray 3-piece suit that looked expensive and custom tailored. Very formal. He smiled with his whole face except his eyes. "Gwendolyn," he said. My heart thumped so hard I thought everyone could hear it. He held out a slip of paper, very official, very small, like a tiny guillotine invitation. "Please come with me," he said, voice smooth as laminated cardstock. I stood because my body stood, but my brain was still back in my chair trying to decide whether this was trouble or bureaucratic trouble, which is worse because you can't talk your way out of it. As I walked past him, I glanced at the slip. My name was wrong. Not just a little wrong, like a typo, wrong in a way that made it feel like they're testing how much of me can be erased without anyone noticing. Gwen became Gwyneth, like I'm a Victorian ghost child. I stopped for half a second, holding the slip between my fingers, and something hot and sharp rose in me. It's not anger exactly. It was the feeling of being diminished on purpose. The man tilted his head, still smiling, still polite. "Is something the matter?" I swallowed. "No," I said, as I could taste the lie in my mouth. And as we left the classroom, I caught Gertrude's eyes. Her face did that thing where she tries to be calm and fails dramatically. She lifted her eyebrows like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And I gave her the smallest shrug I could manage, like, this is fine. This is normal. This is how people get invited to the admin wing. The hallway outside felt colder than it should. Or maybe it was just me. The admin wing always smells like a lemon cleaner and old rules. Even the air felt supervised. My escort, Mr. Three-Piece Suit, walked like he had done this 1,000 times and never once wondered if any of it was cruel. He wore a gray three-piece suit like it was armor, like it had been stitched from money and certainty. We entered the room. The office was nice. Of course it was. Whisperen doesn't do ugly. Whisperen does elegant, controlled, and quietly threatening. There was a big desk, a framed painting of the lake that made the water look calm, which was propaganda. Beside the desk sat Headmistress Arlene Bullock. Her hair was smooth, just like her smile and her voice. She is the kind of woman who can tell you your future is being ruined while offering you tea like it's hospitality instead of a warning. Hello, Headmistress, I said, which was polite, even though I wanted to say, what fresh nightmare is this? She looked up at Mr. Gray Three-Piece Suit and cleared her voice, motioned for me to take a seat in the expensive-looking leather guest chair, and said, Gwendolyn, this is Headmistress William Bullock. I am the interim headmistress only when the headmaster is not here at the academy. The headmaster has flown back from his fundraising in India to address administrative matters. The fact that he had flown back from fundraising in India for Whisperen and the sister academy just to sit in a room with me made my stomach drop in a very specific way. Not I'm in trouble. More like I'm in a situation that they had decided to contain. Headmaster Bullock didn't sit, not right away. He moved to the side of the desk with the slow, deliberate pace of a man who liked rooms arranged around him. He rested one hand on the chair back like he owned the oxygen. Then he sat, finally, quiet, heavy, final. Arlene folded her hands. We've had some concerns, she said. My heart thudded once hard. I kept my face neutral like a museum guard, like someone who had never made a mistake in her life and definitely never confronted a detective because she was losing her mind. What concerns? I asked. Arlene said it like she was reading a weather report. You interfered with an ongoing investigation. I opened my mouth, but she kept going, calmly stepping on my words before they could exist. You behaved in a disrespectful manner toward a law enforcement officer. That was not what happened. I asked questions. I said the quiet part out loud. I refused to smile and nod and pretend everything was fine. But Whisperen did not differentiate between disrespect and discomfort. Headmaster Bullock's expression barely changed, but his voice entered the room like a gavel. It may have been by accident, but nevertheless you placed this academy in an inappropriate position, he said. His tone was gentle, which somehow made it worse. Arlene's smile didn't move. This is, she said, a serious matter. Her tone said, we are calm, therefore we are right. Then Arlene slid a piece of paper toward me. I looked down. 1 month of detention. Not 1 day, not 1 week. A month. My throat went tight. A month? I repeated because maybe I misread it. Maybe my eyes were being dramatic. Arlene nodded gently like she was giving me a gift I didn't appreciate. It's a perfectly reasonable consequence, she said. Perfectly reasonable. That phrase landed on me like a wet towel to the face. My brain did a fast, desperate math problem. A month of detention meant a month of being watched more closely. A month of being kept away from people. A month of not having time alone. A month of not being able to investigate anything without someone breathing near my ear. And then the thought arrived, quiet and terrified. If they could punish questions, they could punish truth. I held on to that like a railing. It was the only solid thing in the room. I looked up. I asked questions, I said. My voice came out steadier than I felt. That's not interference. Arlene tilted her head slightly as if I were a child arguing that broccoli was unfair. The appropriate channels exist for a reason, she said. And Headmaster Bullock nodded, added, voice smooth and gentle, Whisperen cannot allow students to create their own channels. And there it was again. Channels. Not people, not fear, not grief, not the fact that a man was missing. Channels. Arlene didn't rush. She let the detention papers sit between us like a verdict that had already been filed, like my reaction was irrelevant as long as the record existed. And then she reached to the side, calm, efficient, and pulled another folder closer. It wasn't thick. It wasn't dramatic. It was worse than that. It looked ordinary. A manila folder with a label that could have been anything. Enrollment, status, review. Arlene opened it like she was opening a cookbook. We also need to address your documentation, she said. The word documentation hit my chest harder than detention had. I stared at her. My what? William leaned forward a little, softening his face. He looked like someone about to offer comfort. Gwendolyn, he said gently, this doesn't have to be frightening. That sentence made it immediately frightening. Arlene slid a sheet of paper out of the folder and placed it in front of me, perfectly aligned with the edge of the desk. We are obligated to ensure compliance with enrollment requirements, she said. Obligated compliance. Her voice was smooth, practiced, and completely uninterested in whether I could breathe. I looked down. There were phrases on the page that didn't feel like school language. Guardianship verification, sponsorship details, residency status, notification requirement. My mouth went dry. You're reviewing me? I asked, and I hated how small the word me sounded, like I was a document and not a person. William's voice stayed warm. Not you, he said. Your situation. Sometimes paperwork just needs to be clarified. Clarified. As if my life was a smudge someone wanted to rub out. Arlene tapped the page lightly with one finger, the way teachers tapped a wrong answer. This academy has reporting responsibilities, she said. If we become aware of concerns, we must notify the appropriate parties. Notify. Appropriate parties. That phrase had teeth. I tried to speak, but my throat wasn't cooperating. William's eyes held mine, kind, concerned, patient. We don't want this to spiral, he said, as if I had started the spiral, as if my questions had spun the whole building off its axis. We want you safe. We want you supported. Arlene didn't soften, though. This is not a punishment, she said. It is a review. The word review sounded polite, but the papers didn't feel polite. They felt like a trap disguised as a checklist. I stared at the line that said continued enrollment may be impacted. Impacted, I repeated, because my brain didn't want to say the other word. Removed, deported, sent away. William made a sad little sound like this was unfortunate for everyone involved. I know, he said. It's uncomfortable, but these are the realities of institutions. We have to be careful. Careful? Arlene's tone sharpened slightly. And you have made it necessary, she said. There it was. Not you broke rules. Not we're worried about you. Instead, you have become a risk, a liability, a problem that has to be managed. I looked up. So, because I asked a detective questions, I said, voice tight, you're threatening my enrollment? William's face stayed gentle. No one is threatening you, he said softly, like he was soothing a child having a tantrum. But Arlene didn't bother with gentleness. We are informing you, she said, of the consequences that may occur if this continues. If this continues. Not the investigation, not the fear, not the missing man. This, me, my questions, my existence as a complication. The headmaster leaned in slightly, palms open, kindness as a strategy. Let me make this simple, he said. We can get everything settled quickly if you cooperate. The word cooperate slid under my skin. Arlene moved the folder a fraction closer to me. You will be asked to sign acknowledgments, she said. Standard procedural forms. Standard procedural forms. My hands stayed in my lap, clenched so tight my nails dug crescents into my palms. My mind flashed to the detective's warning. Don't sign anything you haven't read twice. Ask for copies. I forced myself to breathe. Slow, quiet, controlled. What happens if I don't sign? I asked. William's voice stayed gentle, almost regretful. It complicates things, he said. Arlene's voice said the truth. It becomes a compliance issue. She said, compliance issue, like a stain, like a mark, like a reason. I stared at the papers and understood the shape of the threat clearly now. It wasn't, you did something wrong. It was, you are removable. You can be processed. You can be filed. You can be shipped out of the story. And they could do it with a polite voice and clean hands. William gave me a sad smile. We're trying to protect you, he said. Arlene's eyes stayed cold. We need to protect the academy, she said. And I suddenly understood exactly which one of us mattered more. I took a deep breath and then shifted how I sat to a more relaxed manner, with one knee hooked over the corner of my chair, with that foot slightly swinging like I was bored since I had heard from the student rumor mill. That not sitting correctly irritated the headmistress Bullock a great deal. She immediately scowled at me but said nothing, so I countered further in the hopes of egging her on. I'm not sure if you're aware that my parents moved from Michigan to Mississippi in the early 80s to help with the civil rights movement. And so we've hosted plenty of civil rights activists over Friday night dinners over the years. And as one lawyer from the Southern Poverty Law Center told me over dessert and coffee, should I ever find myself in such a situation, I am formally reminding you that I am a legal minor, and I am formally requesting time to contact my parents and a copy of all paperwork be given to me to read and confer with my parents before I sign anything. Also, I request that you mail or fax my mother a copy of all paperwork so that my parents and I will both be informed accurately. Unless the Academy will be providing me with a local lawyer who is not affiliated with the Academy to consult with on my legal rights. I slightly smiled, opened my eyes a bit wider, and tilted my head a little bit as if to imply I'm innocent and just following the rules as I was told to. William and Arlene paused for a moment. I swear they didn't breathe for a whole 3 seconds. And then Arlene came back online first and cleared her throat and said, That will be fine. I will have your mother faxed by the end of business day, and a copy will be ready for you to pick up from my office before dinner tonight. I gave her a big smile and replied, Thank you. Is this the end of our meeting, or do I need to see Interpol next? Arlene's eyes and mouth narrowed a bit, and in a flat voice she replied, No, that will be all, Gwendolyn. You'll receive your detention schedule, she said, and we expect your cooperation moving forward. Headmaster Bullock stayed seated, hands folded, as if he just witnessed something unfortunate but necessary. His voice stayed soft, almost sympathetic. Good luck, Gwendolyn, he said as I stood up, and Arlene and I looked at him a bit quizzically, so he clarified, With your studies. I opened the door to the office and asked casually, Leave open or closed? Arlene replied before William could say anything, Closed. I nodded and closed the door behind me. I hoped my casual attitude irritated Arlene as much as I had been told it would. I didn't want them to realize how rattled I actually felt. I knew I was outgunned, but at least I had bought some time in the hopes that once my inner panic had calmed down, I could think of a way out of this mess that my big mouth had gotten me into. The hallway outside felt too bright. My ears were ringing a little, and my legs were carrying me, but I didn't feel attached to them. Then, like a coincidence wearing shoes, I saw the detective, Officer Suarez. He was leaning near the end of the corridor, half shadowed by a plant that looked fake. He was not waiting. Whisperen didn't allow waiting. He was simply present. He lifted his gaze to me, and for half a second, his face shifted. Not soft exactly, but something like, "I'm sorry." The detective took 2 steps forward, so he was in my path for just a moment. A controlled moment. A moment that looked accidental to anyone watching. His voice was low. "Gwendolyn," he said, like he was correcting the universe. That alone almost made me want to throw my hands up and cry, "Another fresh hell so soon after the bulk tag team?" "You didn't sign anything, did you?" he asked. I took a deep breath and replied, "No," and I asked for copies for myself and faxed to my parents, too. He smiled, but his eyes were sharp. He reached into his pocket and produced a card. Plain, no dramatic flourish. He slipped it into my hand with the smoothness of someone who had done quiet kindness before. "Write down everything you remember," he said. "Dates, exact words." I blinked at him. The card had a number, his desk phone number, and scrawled on the back was a different number. His mouth twitched the smallest bit, like he almost smiled but stopped it. He liked me, not in a creepy way. In a, "You're clever and I hate watching clever kids get crushed" way. The detective stepped away immediately back into the role he was allowed to occupy. As he did, he met my eyes one more time, and the look he gave me said, "I believe you. Stay smart. Stick around." I held the card like it was a match in winter. I understood then, really understood, that he couldn't save me by being loud. He could only save me by teaching me how not to be erased. By lunchtime, the rumors had already sprouted legs and ran a marathon. I walked into the cafeteria and it was like stepping into a pond full of frogs. Everything stopped and stared. Someone whispered, loud enough for me to hear, "She's getting expelled." Another voice, too eager, "My roommate says she's getting sent away." Someone else said, "Police trouble," like it was a snack. I gripped my tray so hard my fingers hurt. Lavelle found me near the drink station, eyes wide. "What happened?" he asked. His voice was careful, but his fear was not subtle. Because Deportation wasn't a school story, it was a life story. It was a story about families and borders and paper walls that could separate you from everything you've ever known. I leaned in and kept my voice low. "They gave me a month of detention," I said. Lavelle's face did that thing again. Calm attempt, immediate failure. "A month?" he hissed. "And," I added throat tight, "they're reviewing my documentation." His mouth opened and closed once, like a fish, like someone who had suddenly forgot how air worked. "Bats," he started. I cut him off gently. "Don't say it out loud," I whispered. He stared at me. "Gwen," he said, voice shaking a little, "this is serious." "I know," I said, and I did. That was the worst part. I knew. And then the choice appeared, sitting between us like a fork in the road. Keep digging and risk everything, or go quiet to survive. I took a breath that felt like swallowing glass. "I'm gonna do both," I said. Lavelle frowned. "What?" "Quiet on the outside," I whispered. "Sharper on the inside." Lavelle stared at me for a long second, and then he nodded slow. "Okay," he said, like he was accepting a mission he didn't want. In that moment I realized something else. I couldn't solve this alone. Not now. Not when the school could weaponize paperwork. Not when they could threaten to remove me with a signature. I needed allies. Even if Whisperen tried to file them away from me. Detention at Whisperen is not a room. It's a method. On the first day, I was the only student in detention. They sat me in a space that smelled like chalk dust and disappointment. A staff monitor sat at the front like a bored hawk. There were rules taped to the wall in neat print. No talking, no personal writing, no notebooks, no reading materials not approved. Hands visible. Hands visible. Like I was a threat. Like my fingers were contraband. The chair I was assigned to was made of wood and cruelty. Whoever designed it hated spines and joy, and I hope they stepped on a Lego every day for the rest of their natural life. I sat. I stared at the wall. My brain tried to write anyway, because writing is how I breathe. Without my notebook, I felt like someone had put a lid over my thoughts. And then it hit me clean and cold. Detention wasn't punishment. Detention is disconnection. From allies, from information, from privacy, from the ability to record what is happening. If I can't write it down, it is easier to pretend it never happened. If I can't keep a timeline, it is easier to call me confused. If I can't gather evidence, it is easier to label me disruptive. I stared at the rules again. Hands visible. Fine. I keep my hands visible, but my mind is slipping behind the walls where they can't reach it. I started memorizing. Every voice, every phrase, every exact word from that office. Obligated, notify, compliance, review, removable. I repeated them in my head like a spell. By the third day of detention, I wasn't alone anymore. At first, it had just been me. One chair, one staff monitor, one set of rules pretending to be neutral while quietly accusing my hands of being a weapon. But then, students started showing up. Not the I got caught doing something truly chaotic kind of detention students. The curious kind. The bored kind. The kind who committed tiny strategic infractions like they were buying tickets to a show. A boy I recognized from assembly arrived late on purpose, sliding into a seat with a look that said, "Worth it." A girl from the honors class appeared with her hair suspiciously perfect and a smudged uniform collar that looked like she had rolled in a wall on the way down here. Someone else got written up for talking in the library, which felt like a crime you only committed if you wanted to be caught. They sat in silence, of course. Whisperen loved a quiet audience. But I felt their attention anyway. Like heat. Like insects crawling along my skin. And then something even stranger started happening. Every time a new student showed up for detention, or when they stood to leave, there was a moment where their hands passed too close to mine, or their book slid a little too far across the desk, or their sleeve brushed to the edge of my chair like an accident that had practiced. And a note appeared. A small, folded up, quick, always when the monitor looked away for half a second, or shifted in her seat, or checked the clock like time was an enemy she had to win against. I kept my face blank. Hands visible, right? But my fingers closed around each scrap like it was contraband oxygen. The messages weren't long. They didn't need to be. We believe you. Something is wrong here. Whisperen is rotten. Don't let them scare you quiet. You're not alone. One of them had been written in neat cursive like a threat to calligraphy itself. They're lying. Everyone knows they're lying. Another was barely legible, like the writer's hand had been shaking. If they try to make you disappear, we won't forget. It should have made me feel better. It did, a little. But it also made my stomach twist. Because it meant the rot wasn't just in my imagination. It meant other people could smell it too. And they weren't just curious about me. They were using me as proof that their own quiet dread had a shape now. Rumor turned people into tourists, but fear turned them into accomplices. That was how the third day began. Then Whisperen changed tactics, because Whisperen loves a reasonable escalation. The staff monitor told me I had an additional responsibility now. Work details, she said, like she was offering me a wholesome hobby. The students' eyes tracked me as I stood, not openly. Whisperen didn't allow openly. But I felt it anyway. Their curiosity, their hunger for proximity, their quiet hope that I might look back and confirm whatever story they had told themselves about me. I didn't. I kept my face flat. I kept my hands visible. I let the monitor escort me down a back corridor I didn't even know existed. The hallway narrowed. The carpets disappeared. The building shifted from prestigious institution to old fortress with secrets. We stopped at a door marked records/storage. A key turned. The door opened. Inside was a room of shelves, boxes, filing cabinets, and dust. Paper everywhere. A museum of administration. The stern staffer from the office was waiting. She gestured toward a stack of folders. "You will reorganize this," she said. "Alphabetical, proper placement, no deviations." No deviations. Of course. I nodded like a good little file. Inside my chest, my heart was pounding like it wanted out. Because this was not punishment. This was a clue mine. They had put me in the one place where Whisperen kept its true language. Not spoken, filed. I started moving folders. A, B, C. My fingers were careful. My eyes were sharper than they'd ever been. I saw discipline memos. I saw withdrawals. I saw transfers. Except the dates don't line up. There were gaps. There were forms with missing signatures. There were withdrawals recorded as if students simply left, quietly, peacefully, no fuss, but the notes attached were strange. Conduct affecting sponsorship/eligibility. Student status requires review. Non-compliance with institutional expectations. It was the same language they had used on me. Same lever, same calm threat. I kept my face blank. I kept filing. And then I saw a folder tab. A name I recognized. Not a student. Grunfeld. My blood went cold. I shouldn't have been able to find this. This shouldn't have been here. It was thin, like someone didn't want it to exist. I slid it out halfway, like I was only checking placement. Inside was a memo, stamped, official, not a news story, not gossip, not rumor, paper truth. A phrase stood out immediately. Pending internal review, do not disclose to students. My fingers trembled. Another line. Incident report attached, restricted access. And then like a knife under a napkin. If questions arise, redirect, maintain institutional procedure. Institutional procedure. Interesting. They had a story they were telling, and it wasn't the whole story. I wanted to snatch the memo and stuff it into my shirt like a squirrel hoarding nuts for winter, but I didn't, because Whisperen was built to catch desperate movements. So I did what the detective said. I didn't act. I memorized. I forced my eyes to scan the lines. Not too fast, not too slow. Dates, names, phrases. I committed them to the only safe place I had right then. My skull. The air changed. That was the first sign. A shift in the hallway. A faint click. A presence. My body went rigid. Someone was at the door. I slid the folder back into place so smoothly it felt like my soul was leaving my body. The door opened. A staff member stood there. One I'd seen around the dorms, not friendly, not cruel, just observant. Her eyes moved across the room, across me, across the shelves. I kept my hands on a stack of harmless folders, pretending to be deeply invested in alphabetical order, like a person who dreamed in filing cabinets. She stepped inside. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Organizing," I said, voice flat and obedient. Her gaze sharpened. "Which folders?" I gestured vaguely at the stack in my hands. "Discipline records?" I said. She watched me for a long second. My pulse was loud in my ears. I felt like my heartbeat was a marching band announcing my crimes. She took a few steps closer. I could smell her perfume. Clean, floral, maybe a bit too musky. She reached past me and pulled a random folder from the shelf, flipped it open, looked at the contents. I stared at the wall, did not blink, did not breathe wrong, did not act guilty. Finally, she shut it. Her eyes met mine again. "Be efficient," she said. And then she left. The door clicked shut. My knees went weak. I stood there frozen for a full 10 seconds, listening to her footsteps fade. And then I exhaled. It was shaky. I never felt more alive. I had never felt more endangered. Later, as I was walking back from work detail, I saw the detective again. Not waiting, just present. This time, he didn't approach me. He didn't have to. He caught my gaze, and I knew he could read the expression on my face. The look that said, "I found something." He gave me the smallest nod. Then the detective spoke, low and quick, like he was dropping a single stitch into a torn seam. "Paper review doesn't mean removal," he said, eyes forward. "Not yet." My breath caught. "But," he added, voice sharper, "don't help them by panicking." I swallowed. "What does it mean?" I whispered. He didn't look at me. "It means they're trying to scare you quiet," he said, "and build a record." A record? His notes, their folders, their institutional narrative. Then he said almost casually, "Keep your own record, too." I thought of my notebook banned in detention. I thought of the memo I had memorized. I thought of the card in my pocket. "How?" His mouth tightened. "Use what you have," he said. "Your memory, your allies, your timing." Then his eyes flicked to mine just for a second. "The preliminary autopsy results have been illuminating," he said so softly it barely existed. And then he stepped back into distance again. A man with limited power, doing surgical help, creating a trail, because maybe, later, when Whisperen tries to erase me, his trail will matter. That night in the dorm, I sat on my bed with my hands clenched in my lap. Cindy was pretending to read. No one was actually reading. The whole room felt like it was holding its breath. I waited until lights out, until the hallway quieted, until Whisperen thought it had me contained. Then I checked my pocket for the detective's card. It was still there. A lifeline. I stared at it, then shoved it into the safest place I could think of. A seam in my bag that had a tiny tear, hidden but reachable. I lay back, staring at the ceiling, and then a soft sound. A shift of paper. I sat up. My heart kicked hard. There was something under my pillow. I had not put it there. My fingers went cold as I slid it out. It was a small slip of paper. I could read it by the moonlight. One line, a phone number, and beneath it, 3 words that hit like a door opening in the dark. Ask for Claire. No signature, no explanation, nothing that could be traced, but I knew. I knew it came from an ally. My hands shook as I read it again. Help existed. Somewhere, quietly, and also, the school was moving faster than I was. I pressed the slip to my palm like it could soak into me, and I realized with a sharp, terrifying clarity, if I was going to survive this, I am going to have to outthink an institution. And institutions don't get tired. Okay, diary. I do not have the luxury of spiraling. I can spiral later. I can spiral in my 30s in a safe apartment with snacks like a responsible adult. Right now, I need a plan. Here's what I know, diary. I will not sign anything. Not acknowledgments, not agreements, not understandings, nothing. Not until I read it twice and get a copy. If they say I can't have a copy, that means I definitely need a copy. I need to hide my notes. If they won't let me write in detention, then I will write in my head and transfer it later. I can use code. I can write it in like poetry. I can tuck it into boring homework margins. I can use places people don't respect, like the back of a permission slip or inside a dusty library book nobody checks out. I will choose who I trust like it matters, because it does. Lavelle, maybe 1 or 2 others, and Officer Suarez, quietly, carefully, at a distance. I need to keep digging, but I need to do it smarter. Quiet outside, sharper inside. And here's the vow, written in the only ink I have right now, my pulse. If I get removed, the truth doesn't. If I disappear, my evidence doesn't. If Whisperen tries to file me away, I will leave paper cuts in their perfect little narrative, because I am not Gwyneth. I am not a folder tab. I am not a status that can review and be discarded. I am a person, and I am still here. For now. Forever yours, Gwen. That's the end of Season 1 of Boarding School Murder Mystery. Season 2 returns autumn 2026. Whisperen will still be creepy then, I promise. Coming in autumn 2026, Boarding School Murder Mystery Season 2. Whisperen thought detention would teach Gwen to behave. Instead, it taught her how to survive. Now, the police are listening. The coroner confirms what the school wants to pretend isn't true. And the academy, calm as ever, keeps smiling like rules matter more than bodies. But Season 2 doesn't just bring answers, it brings consequences. A helpful adult gets arrested, the campus turns on Gwen, someone starts removing evidence before anyone can ask the right questions, the village stops feeling safe, and the school starts closing doors. And when things finally get big enough that even Whisperen can't shush it anymore, the Mounties show up. Somewhere between the dining hall whispers and the records that don't add up, Gwen learns the worst part. Whisperen isn't just hiding the truth, it's practicing it. If you want to keep binge reading Gwen right now, you can start at Chapter 1, or you can check our Season 1 hub at glorythink.substack.com/s/boarding school murder-mystery. Or you could share Chapter 12 with a friend who loves institutions or scary mysteries. Coming next week, The Trouble with Angels. Hannah is shattered by grief. Then a burnt-out angel named Bob drags her into the cosmic paperwork nobody warned her about. There are portals, rats with trade networks, your afterlife trademarked, and somewhere above it all an order appears that might erase Earth itself. Quick question. If an angel showed up with a mission, would you A. obey, B. slam the door, or C. pepper spray first, ask questions later? Thanks for listening, and I hope to hear from you soon. Goodbye.